and welcome back to Whatever It Takes. My name is Dustin, and this is proof that I will never grow up. In today's episode, we are going to be looking at Agent Carter. This is episode number 2, and we're looking at season 1, episodes 1 and 2 of Agent Carter. But a reminder about what this podcast is. This podcast is dedicated to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and a watching of it in chronological order. So what does that mean? It means that the properties that are littered throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universes, movies, TVs, all of the things that are tied either directly or tangentially to the Marvel Cinematic Universe that was created in 2008, I am watching them in the chronological order, in the in the way that the properties themselves are seated in the universe that it was created. So last week, we had our first episode, Captain America, the First Avenger, which was, set during World War II and really the beginning of the Marvel age of this universe that we're looking at, the 616 universe, that all of the Marvel properties interact with in one way or another. So we are looking at that. And this week, we move on to Agent Carter, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But a few notes about spoilers. We do not care about spoilers here at this podcast. I'm assuming that you've either seen the properties that we're talking about or seen most of the Marvel properties. So I may draw inferences or examples or show how these connections relate to future properties. For example, this episode, we're going to be talking when we're talking about Agent Carter, we're talking about Captain America, First Avenger, but there are hints at Iron Man 2. There are hints at, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. There are callbacks to Captain America, First Avenger and Agent Carter. And when we get into the next segment where we're talking about what's happening currently in the Marvel Universe, I'm going to be doing spoilers for Doctor Strange, Moon Knight, Thor, Love and Thunder, and Guardians of the Galaxy is in a whole bunch of other things that are coming to pass. So if you are worried about spoilers at all, this isn't the podcast for you. We're going to be talking spoilers here. And I'm going to assume that you've seen all of the stuff that we're talking about or don't care about it being spoiled for you. So fair warning. So what's next? Well, next we're going to talk about what's up in the 616, our segment dedicated to the current happenings in the Marvel Universe. And welcome back to What Up 616. This is the segment in this podcast that we're dedicating to the current happenings here in the Marvel Universe. And of course, this week, the big news was the release of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I went with my family to see this on opening night on Thursday, and wow, what an incredible movie. This property is almost the epitome of this little idea of a podcast I have, because it weaves so much of the TV shows that are currently happening in the previous movies and as well as other things into it. And really showing that this is really an very connected universe. Doctor Strange draws on fan fictions with and brings in comic ideas of the Fantastic Four and X-Men, as well as ties in What If, ties in WandaVision and the previous Doctor Strange movie. So this is an broadly expansive movie and a great way to deal with the universe. And it introduces a new character, America Chavez, another hero in this universe now, or in every universe apparently. I'm not going to get too much into the spoilers of this movie because we'll deal with Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness when it comes up on the watch list, which check in later in the podcast. You'll see where in the watch list it falls. But what an amazing movie. What a phenomenal movie. We also saw this week the final episode of Moon Knight. Another knock it out of the park for Marvel. I mean, what a great week they're having here. The series finale of Moon Knight really, and the whole series itself, dealing with the Egyptian gods has really brought Marvel and horror Marvel into the forefront. The same with Doctor Strange and this. The horror aspect of Marvel is really on display here. We'll see whether this is actually going to be a self-contained show or else it's going to have another season, because shortly before the airing of the series finale, the series finale was changed to season finale. So that indicates that it may come back for a second season. And it did have quite a cliffhanger there with the introduction of the third personality for Moon Knight, along with Mark Spector and Stephen Grant. We saw the third personality of Jake Longley. And it does seem like the story has a long way to go before it's resolved, and that the Moon Knight, either in another series or in or another season, will have a long history here in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So again, see where Moon Knight looks on our watch list when we talk about it later on this episode. This episode, but it will be quite some time before I go into the episode by episode breakdowns for this incredible show. So check it out. Also in Moon Knight, we saw the introduction of a new character, the Scarlet Scarab, played by the Mark Spector's ex-wife Layla, taking on the avatar of one of the Egyptian gods. And what a great new addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe this is going to be. And my wife and I, when we were watching this, she was really impressed, and I agree with her that this costume that they designed for the Scarlet Scarab is just phenomenal. And it's a feminine costume in a way that is not overtly sexual. It's not there for just the eye candy. We are seeing traces of Egyptian goddess, an Egyptian mythology in there, along with just incredible badass acting by the actor, and ability to fight. The Scarlet Scarab, I hope, is another hero that we're either going to see in another season of Moon Knight or in other Marvel properties, because it opens up a lot of the world of our world, the Egyptian and Middle Eastern world, into the having representation. I think that's a good thing. Loki season 2 is starting, and there's a new head writer for it. They announced this week. They announced that they're starting they're starting production of Loki season 2, and it's still continuing to move forward. The head writer from Doctor Strange, it was part of the team, but he's turned over head writing duties to another person right now. And the directors from Moon Knight have moved over from Moon Knight to Loki season 2 to be the principal directors. So obviously Loki season 2 is moving forward. And I think we'll see a Loki season 2 before the end of phase 4. And since it's starting to work on it, we'll probably see something in early 2024 or late 2023. We'll have to see where that goes. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 wrapped up principal photography this week. James Gunn talked about how he just loved these characters, and it was hard to say goodbye. This is James Gunn's final Guardians of the Galaxy. As part of the photography of that, they also did the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, which is going to air at the end of this year in 2022. So we'll get a little peek of the Guardians of the Galaxies, and then Volume 3 will be out in May of next year. The Avengers celebrated its 10-year anniversary this week. So it's a big anniversary for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. A ton of, this whole first phase 1 that made the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe possible was because of the Avengers, and it was a phenomenal movie. It's nobody thought that a superhero team up movie could take place and be successful. along with 5 movies leading into it that made it or 4 movies leading into it that made it the team up movie that was possible. It really kind of rewrote the playbook, and nobody's actually been able to accomplish it since. So it's a tremendous milestone, and well to be celebrated. Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, celebrated his 20th anniversary this year, which will make you feel incredibly old. The original Spider-Mans, and of course the Andrew Garfield Spider-Mans, are movies that I am including in the Marvel Cinematic Universe chronological walkthrough, mainly because of their impact on Far From Home. But of course, when they were created in 2002 for the original Spider-Man, I think it was 2012 for the Andrew Garfield ones, they were not part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in any way, shape, or form. In fact, in the Tobey Maguire one, the Marvel Cinematic Universe was not even a possibility yet. But what Spider-Man did do, besides establishing Tobey Maguire, and which became a character later on in Far From Home, was it showed that a franchise of a superhero film can make money, that they can spend money in budgets, that they can have well-developed villains, well-developed characters. Now, Spider-Man 3, we all fall from grace time from time, and we'll talk about that when we get to that movie. But it's important to recognize this milestone as well. And now, again, another warning about spoilers. I'm going to be talking a little bit of a spoiler about Thor: Love and Thunder. They released a photo of Jane Foster and Chris Hemsworth's Thor together as the Thors. And so if you don't want to see it, turn away. Okay, here it is. Look at this. Isn't this amazing? Look at Jane Foster here as the mighty Thor, along with Chris Hemsworth's Thor, the original. We see the reassembled Mjolnir. This is an official photo that was released by Thor: Love and Thunder, which is coming out in July of this year. And look at the meat hook on Natalie Portman there. I don't know if that's her actual arm or if that's CGI amplification, but my gosh, look at that. She looks great. And the more comic accurate costume for Chris Hemsworth's Thor is also pretty cool as well. To see the differences in these two costumes, and to see somebody else holding Mjolnir is quite impressive. The story about how Mjolnir is going to come together and be in Jane's hands is yet to be told, and I really can't wait for this movie. So that is what is up with the 616. And now we're getting into the meat of their show. We're going to check in with S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters for this week's episode. We're looking at episode 2 of Agent Carter, season 1, episodes 1 and 2. This is episode 2 of our podcast, and checking in with S.H.I.E.L.D. on the dossier for this episode. Episodes 1 and 2 of Agent Carter premiered on January 6th, 2015. They premiered back-to-back as part of a 2-hour special on ABC television. It was actually released in phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's coming in January of 2015. Obviously, and it also was in a mid-season replacement for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on ABC. And it was started off as a limited series and then eventually got a season 2 as well. The critical response, episode 1, Now Is Not the End, was rated 7.9 on IMDb. And of course, episode 2, Bridge and Tunnel, the same episodes that were released together, again, 7.9 on IMDb. It really released to a lot of critical praise. These first two episodes did set the tone for the rest of the season. But let's stop that right now and let's get into the recap. And welcome to Agent Carter Season 1, Episode 1. And of the recap, it is 1946. And Peggy Carter is working for the Bell Phone Company, and she's sharing a flat with a lady who we don't really see very much of, but she is retraining men back from the war to take her a job, as she was a riveter during the war and now is training men to take her job for her. We find out that Howard Stark is in trouble. Some of his dangerous weapons have fallen into the hands of the enemy, and people are thinking he's selling it to other people. And so in comes the SSR, the Strategic Scientific Reserve. This agency is tasked to finding Howard Stark, and we find out that Agent Carter is not working for the phone company, but actually an agent for this agency. But because she's a woman and in the 40s, they treat her bad. They try to get her to only take phone calls and orders and not be part of the meetings. But of course, Agent Carter will be having none of that. And she not only joins the briefings, but defends Howard Stark in the meantime. We then go to a diner where Peggy Carter spends a lot of her time with her friend Angie, who is a waitress at the diner. But as she's at the diner, she is interrupted. Their meal is interrupted by Jarvis. The introduction of Jarvis from Howard Stark's butler, who asked her to join her out in the alleyway. After a long chase, it turns out that Howard Stark is actually looking for Peggy Carter and asking her to help him clear his names, because he, of course, is innocent, but cannot turn himself in because he's afraid of being framed, and he needs Peggy Carter to become the agent that she is and actually find the evidence that will free him. Agent Carter finds out that a Spider Raymond, owner of a nightclub, is actually dealing with the formulas that Howard Stark is supposedly selling to his enemies. So she decides to infiltrate the nightclub dressed as a gorgeous blonde. She's noticed immediately by the man in the gray suit, a mysterious man who says nothing and is eerily leering after her the entire time. She does break into Spider Raymond's office and finds the Nutramine, a incredibly dangerous explosive that, of course, is about to go off if it is not neutralized. And Peggy Carter decides to abscond with it back to her apartment, just missing the Jack Dowling and the rest of the SSR or Jack Thompson and the rest of the SSR, who showed up at the Spider Raymond's club, only to find out that Spider Raymond was in fact murdered. And speaking of murder, Agent Carter comes back to her flat to find her friend and roommate also murdered. And of course, surprise, it's the man in the green suit who's waiting there for her, who gets his hand burned on a stove and gets pushed out of the window by the ever able defense by Peggy Carter. Peggy Carter and Jarvis realize that they need help on this, so they go to Stark Industries, to none other than Anton Vanko, this scientist working at Stark Industries, and he says, "Hey, this thing that is being made, we think there's only really one agency in the world that can make it, Roxxon Chemicals." Then we see that the man in the green suit is actually talking to a mysterious group of supervisors using a remote typewriter, a typewriter that is connected to a transistor radio of some code, getting orders from afar to not only find the Nutramine, but to eliminate Peggy Carter. We then cut to Roxxon and a factory, and Agent Carter infiltrates it and sees that this guy named the two scientists here at Roxxon are discussing the making and distribution of Nutramine. Peggy Carter chases Brannis down to a milk truck outside, where he opens the doors, and you see not only does he have one Nutramine bomb, but hundreds of Nutramine bombs, and he has the same scar on his neck as the man in the green suit, and he places a device to his throat to allow him to talk, and he says 3 words: Leviathan is coming. He then sets off the bomb, which Agent Carter and Jarvis get into their car, get away from the factory just in time to have it all implode on itself. We then go to episode 2, Agent Carter, season 1. We open episode 2 with the Captain America radio show, and where we find that with insult to injury, Peggy Carter is demoted to Betty Carter, a helpless secretary who's always being absconded by the Nazis. Back at the diner, Peggy Carter talks to her friend Angie, who's trying to get her to move in with her at the women's shelter. And Peggy Carter says, that last roommate situation I had didn't quite work out. It was kind of a short-term lease, so I think we're going to pass right now. I'll find my own place. Without a place to go, Jarvis does offer her the Howard Stark's penthouse, which she's like, yeah, I'll stay here for a little bit. But I can't really stay in the penthouse of a murderer, and God knows what he's been doing in this very bed. Meanwhile, Jack Thompson and the SSR are investigating the Roxxon implosion. All the pieces of the factory have been brought to another warehouse where they're all in a huge ball of metal. And of course, the dopey fat agent is being told that he has to put his muscles to work, prying it all open, finding any clue possible. Meantime, Peggy Carter goes to the milk company of the truck that she saw speeding away from the Roxxon factory to try to track down the owner of the milk truck. And she finds out that the owner brings his truck home every night. How convenient. So she decides to wait until later to find him at his residence after she gets his home address. Meanwhile, the SSR is visiting the Roxxon chemical headquarters, and they meet the CEO, who's like, hey, yeah, we're not really making anything, but if anybody here was involved in it, they'd have a lot of Vita-Rays on their person. So why don't you come and scan them? Agent Carter, although, is back at the SSR headquarters, and she finds out that there are pictures of a mysterious blonde woman that was seen leaving the nightclub, which was, of course, her. So she tries to abscond the photos from her friend Daniel Sousa, who is, well, she's hiding under his desk. And of course, he comes back because there's a phone call. And that phone call is for Peggy Carter to come to Roxxon headquarters to, help wand down all the women, because the guys there, they can't do it. But so she comes to Roxxon headquarters, and she sees the same agent that was, or the same scientist at the Roxxon factory that was there. And although he didn't have any Vita-Rays on him, she asked if the Vita-Rays would be able to be soaked into his original equipment in the locker. And of course, he takes off, knowing that the game is up. But Peggy Carter uses the back stairs and knocks him out, catching him when everybody else couldn't. Again, showing that Peggy Carter better than all these other dudes. Meantime, the man in the green suit is trying to find Brannis, and he's going through each and every of his contacts, including all these mobsters one by one, killing them after interrogating them in brutal ways to find the location of Brannis. Peggy goes to the milk truck driver's house at night, finds him there again. Another long line of men that try to attack Peggy Carter and get their asses handed to them. And then she sees outside Brannis is there with the milk truck. And she convinces him, quite forcefully, to go with her, give him protection, and that he would then tell them all about this mysterious Leviathan. Unfortunately, the milk truck, as they were drawing away, was attacked by the man in the green suit. There was a little fray on top of the milk truck as they were driving along. Jarvis and Brannis and Peggy Carter escaped, but unfortunately Brannis was shot, and the milk truck goes over the cliff and explodes, letting the nearby SSR agents know exactly where they are. So Peggy Carter and Jarvis have to go back to Howard Stark's penthouse, where Jarvis, attending to Peggy Carter's wounds, reminds her that she should be able to depend on her friends to help her out when she needs it, because she is worthy of that, and they may rise to the occasion. That allows her to finally take Angie up on her offer to help her get an apartment in the women's home that she's in. and then they would be, right down the hall from one another. Agent Carter gets the apartment, and we end the episode with the SSR agent who finally got apart the Roxxon factory ball of metal to find one vital clue, a license plate, and probably the license plate from Jarvis and Peggy Carter when they ran away from the Roxxon factory in episode 1. And that is the recap. This was one of the first episodes that we watched as a family in the recap. And I had seen season 1 back in when it premiered in 2015. But my son Grant was a little bit less than 6 at that point. Wasn't quite ready for weekly serialized TV shows. We didn't quite have the time, and he wasn't as interested in that as the TV movies. He was just starting to get into the Marvel movies at that point, and throwing a TV show at him was probably a little bit much. I kind of forgot about the TV show after a while until we started doing this read-through or this watch-through, and boy, what a wonderful show this ended up being. And the first 2 episodes really set the mood for this weird time period that the Marvel 616 universe is going through. We saw the emergence of superpowered beings during World War II, which is the age of Marvel happening upon the Marvel 616, but then they all disappeared. Yet there are still superpowered and extra powered items in the world, such as the Howard Stark's Nutramine and other things that that we experience in these first 2 episodes. We also find a fully formed series around a woman for the first time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Again, this came out in 2015, well into phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but none of the movies, and the only other TV show going on at the time was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., none of them had female focused heroines that were at the front of an episode. And also here we have Peggy Carter, who is just a tremendous agent, and while definitely seated in a world full of misogyny and stereotypes, she exceeds all of them, and exceeds all expectations of all the people around her, but not herself. And yet we see her dealing with that, but we also see her succeeding and showing that she's a tough agent. She can fight with the best of them, but she's also intelligent and smart and uses her brains and to solve, and is a formidable agent in and of herself, and a formidable heroine. I was really impressed with the series. It got a cult following, and well so. But let's get into how this series, how Agent Carter, and especially episodes 1 and 2, helped to build the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Agent Carter is the second episode here and the second property in the chronological order of the universe, but it did come out in 2015. So as they build this universe, not only are they calling back to Captain America, but they're going to be calling to other properties, having a foreshadow to other properties, but intentional. And also they put things into their series that future Marvel properties will call back to. And that's some of the things that we're going to talk about in this segment of the podcast. And of course, we have to talk about Agent Carter herself. Obviously, this is a character that we're reintroduced to. She had a major role in Captain America, the First Avenger. But here we see the civilian side of Agent Carter, who is part of the Scientific Strategic Reserve, or Strategic Scientific Reserve, and she's a competent, capable, physically gifted agent who is not afraid to get into a fight, but also better at solving fights with her brain instead of brawn, and it shows her superiority to almost every other agent in the office. This reintroduction of this character starts to put Agent Carter onto a path of her own, away from uh, just Steve Rogers' girlfriend. And as we see that she does end up becoming the founding member of Shield and a formidable spy in and of her own right. So seeing her in these first two episodes struggle with re-establishing her place in a male-dominated world, but also doing the things that she does best, being able to be at the center of a spy mystery and solving it, and also holding her own in physical altercations. We really get to see a good capsulation and a reintroduction of this character. A new character that we see in this universe for the first time is Jarvis. Though Jarvis is a lot of people think of Jarvis as the AI from Iron Man. We find out that Jarvis was actually the butler of Howard Stark, and probably a father figure to Tony, and that's why he named his AI after him. But here we see Jarvis at the very beginning. He's more used to dealing with Howard Stark's romantic liaisons and the spying and espionage that comes along with that than actual true espionage. Just wonderful performances here. In comedic performance, we see this character that is not used to dealing with dealing with not dealing with stuff happening after 9 o'clock because of his home life, having to get used to actually doing this, and played by James D'Arcy, who's just a phenomenal actor, gifted, having a real physical gift for comedy, as well as a quick wit about him. Just a phenomenal character that we're introduced to for the first time in these two episodes, and we see that he is going to become Agent Carter's sidekick, at least for this first season, and probably beyond. He's just a phenomenal entrance into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Of course, we're briefly reintroduced to Howard Stark. He was only in the first episode, but we have to deal with the legacy of Howard Stark, a gifted scientist, but who is not very cautious, and creates things and then thinks about their implications later. He creates these nitramine bombs. He creates these formulas and doesn't think about how, if they fall into the wrong hands, how they're going to have to deal with that. Also, he relies on Peggy to resolve his problems instead of turning himself into the authority. So we don't see that Howard Stark is very willing to take responsibility for his actions, much like an earlier Tony Stark before his transformation in the 2008 Iron Man. Agent Sousa is also introduced. We don't get to see much of him in episodes 1 and 2. He's barely there, but you already see that he and Peggy Carter are starting to form a bond. Agent Sousa was disabled in the war, and much like Agent Carter, who's a woman, is looked down upon by the other male prototype agents in the Strategic Scientific Reserve, and thus we see the formation of a bond between Sousa and Carter in these episodes, but I think we're going to get a lot more of that later on. Another callback or for flash forwarding, or foreshadowing, really, is probably the better way for it, is Anton Vanko. This is a great little call back to Iron Man 2, which had already aired at the time of this episode airing. That Anton Vanko is the father of Mickey Rourke's character Whiplash in Iron Man 2, who that Vanko, seeing his father, who was eventually thrown out of the country and sent back to Russia and became a bitter drunk, is the motivation behind Mickey Rourke's Vanko to go after young Tony Stark, Howard Stark's son. Probably because we see here there is something going on, and we'll find out later on whether Vanko had anything to do with this. But this Vanko shows up in the episode 1 is a nice little callback. The Strategic Scientific Reserve is a nice thing that was introduced in these episodes. I really like that they didn't decide to go with the early portion of Shield. They went with the prototype agency before that, because we know from the comics and we know from other canonical movies that Peggy Carter was a big part of the founding of Shield. The same with Howard Stark. So if we started with Shield, then they would be at the top of their careers and not working their way up. So having the Strategic Scientific Reserve and as the prototype agency to Shield is very important, and we get to see Agent Carter and of course Howard Stark too probably work their way up through the ranks. The man in the green suit and his remote typewriter is talking to an agency we only hear called Leviathan. That's going to become major in the next few episodes, but it is I won't spoil it right now, but this shadowy conspiracy is introduced in the first 2 episodes of Agent Carter, and also this neat little technology, the remote typewriter, where you can type on it and someone else can type back reading it. It's a neat little contraption to show a futuristic 1940s spying technology. We also see the Captain America radio program. I throw this in here because I think I just love this came out in episode 2. This Captain America program, not only is it used as a comedic device where the Foley machine, the Foley table is used to show, cracking of lobster skulls while a fight is happening in the radio and in the real world. It was a neat little comic device, but it also kind of shows you the world in which Peggy Carter is living in, a world still dominated that only men can be heroes. And even the idea of an equal partner, as Peggy Carter was to Steve Rogers, was so not able to be swallowed by the masses that her name was changed to Betty Carter, was made to be a helpless assistant that was always being kidnapped by the Nazis only to be saved by Steve. That was her only role in life. So that was a nice little, not only comedic, but I think it's also gives us a little idea of the world that Peggy Carter is in. We also see the mention of the Roxxon chemical company. Roxxon, it looks like it's going to play a big part in the season 1 here, but Roxxon is a long legacy company from the comics. A shady corporation that is always involved in some kind of backroom deal where people are, dealing drugs or some kind of superpowered or arms. So Roxxon has a huge long history. It was mentioned in other MCU properties, but not in a starring role. It's not quite in a starring role here, but it does look like it's part of this this arms race that is developing. And then finally, the Nutramine item was introduced here. This extra, futuristic explosive. It is this thing was actually, there's a call back to this in Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is happens many 10 years later. It is produced, and they call back to the Nutramine, where the terrorists use a form of this in their terrorism. So all of these things are things that were either called back to in Agent Carter, introduced in Agent Carter or expanded on from previous entries in Agent Carter, or foreshadows of other Marvel properties. And I just love the way Marvel pays attention to the details. It's why they've been able to build this almost 10, 12, 14 year product here of spanning hundreds of properties and episodes and movies, because they're able to have these writers that are paying attention to detail and building a world that you can believe is real. And so that is how they built this Marvel universe in episodes 1 and 2 of Agent Carter. So my final thoughts on Agent Carter seasons episodes 1 and 2. I really enjoy this property. I'm going to enjoy the next 2 seasons, as this is what we're going to be doing over the next few episodes. As this is the next item in the chronological order of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Next up, we'll check in over the next, I think, 3 or 4 episodes. We're going to be doing exclusively Agent Carter stuff until it's done with its 2-season run. But the first 2 episodes of this really build the world that Agent Carter is in, and also builds the world that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a part of. So I really appreciate in these first 2 episodes. I believe they're pretty well written. The characters are pretty well developed, and they mix physical action with humor and comedy and spy and espionage in a way that not many other of the Marvel properties do. So that is my final thoughts for Agent Carter episodes 1 and 2, and I can't wait to bring you the next episode. So let's go take a look at our Bible, though, on the Whatever It Takes podcast, the Watcher List. So head on over to whateverittakespod.com and we can take a look at the Watcher List. This is the list that I've developed in conjunction with other lists around the web. This started with Digital Spy, so big shout out to them that I came across the chronological version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe when I started this journey with my family a year ago. But I've actually amplified it. I've added some stuff to it. I've also even modified it just this last week, because I decided that the best way to do this is, if you're sitting down for a setting, you want to be able to do a listing on the Watcher List all in one night. So, and that is what has become the episode. So I'm only going to do 2 or 3 television episodes in one night, and I'm going to do or a movie in one of our episodes. And so that actually amplified the list. We are now here on number 2 of the list, Agent Carter seasons episodes 1 to 2. And once this episode is up, you'll see that the hyperlink will be next to it with the episode. But I've added in all of this, and my family is actually here on the number 69, Iron Fist season 1, episodes 1 to 2. We just started Iron Fist. This is that's the progress we've made in the last year. But as you can see, by going down to 1 or 2 or 3 episodes of TV show in a sitting, I've actually amplified the list. It was about 150 listings. Now it's 188, and we just added 189 Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness right at the end of the list. It is confirmed that it is the most current of the Marvel Cinematic Universe properties. So that is on the end of the list. And as we go through, as Marvel releases products, I'll be adding them, whether it's on the end or in a different timeline. It depends on how the Marvel products are released and what times that they are in. We'll see how we go through this. So, it looks like if I'm doing a weekly episode, I have over 3 years worth of content here. And of course, Marvel's going to be continually releasing things. So I don't think that if I'm able to keep up this pace, that I'm going to catch up anytime soon. but nor are my family and I going to be able to finish this anytime soon. Which is great, which is amazing, right? All this content is there and it's available for us, and that is one of the amazing parts of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So check the watcher list. And now we'll go on to next week's episode. And next week, we continue on with Agent Carter Season 1. Our third episode will focus on Season 1, Episodes 3, 4, and 5 of this incredible series. The third episode of our journey into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I want to thank a few people that I am drawing inspiration from here. MCU Direct is helping me provide a lot of the stuff I do for the current Marvel news. The Marvel Database is a wonderful free fandom wiki, which helps me bring some of the pictures that I've been able to use in the video portion of this podcast. Digital Spy, of course, was the original creator of the chronological list that I started using that started this adventure. And Free Sound is a website that I found that helps provide all of this free royalty free music that I've been able to use. So thank you so much to these great resources. Go check those out. Follow them on Twitter and on the web. And next week you can join us on our journey. Follow us at whateverittakeспod.com. Thank you so much for your time in joining me on the third episode of Whatever It Takes. Bye-bye.